The Senate will please come to order, returning from a brief recess, and I believe the senator from Windham had the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I think that the simplest way to put this is that the Joint Rules Committee is the decision-making body under this JRS 24. The Joint Rules Committee is governed by the Constitution. And so they would not make any decision that ran counter to the Constitution, because we on Joint Rules have counsel present with us whenever we are making decisions. So their decision making is not outside of the authority of the Constitution. Is that helpful, Senator from Windsor?
No, but while we were on recess, because that doesn't address my question, while we were on recess, the majority leader informally informed me that if the public is barred from the State House, that the meetings will take place in rooms that are Zoomable, and that the public will have access to those meetings, which is what I assumed was the case. I did not have the text in front of me. I was relying on the oral presentation, but having received that assurance informally, if the pro tem wants to simply endorse that, that's the assurance I was looking for.
Thank you, Madam President. I'm not in the habit of making endorsements from the floor, but I will say this, Senator, that the public and the press has had access to all of our work this session, and nothing will change. They will always have access in some way to the work that we are doing when we are in session or whether we're sitting in committee. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator.
Madam President, that is the answer I was looking for, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Are you ready for the question? The question is, shall the Senate concur with the House proposal of amendment on JRS 24? Senators are kindly asked to unmute. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and you've concurred with the House proposal of amendment on JRS 24. The senator from Windham is recognized.
Game plan would be that you could start here, you do this, you're going to stop here to give speeches, and then we'll stop here till about 14 after 3. Does that make sense?
Senators, this brings us to adjournment. The senator from Windham is recognized.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that the Senate direct the Secretary to inform the House that the Senate has completed its business of the session and is ready to adjourn pursuant to the provisions of JRS 29.
The senator from Windham has moved the Senate direct the Secretary to inform the House that the Senate has completed the business of the session and is ready to adjourn pursuant to the provisions of JRS 29. Are you ready for the question? Kindly unmute. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and you've directed the Secretary to inform the House that the Senate has completed its business and is ready to adjourn pursuant to JRS 29.
Something here, where's the?
I believe now is the moment for some remarks, and I'm very pleased to give the floor to the President Pro Tem.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, Senators. At this time, I would like to ask
the minority leader if he would like to make some remarks to the chamber.
Thank you, Madam President. I would like to make some remarks. I first would like to thank my colleagues for their diligence, the hard work that they've demonstrated during this session, their good humor, and their collegiality. I want to thank the public for putting up with us, for putting up with the technical glitches and the start and stop nature that is characteristic of Zoom meetings. I want to thank the public for participating in our democracy and for joining with us both in committee meetings and on the floor in a way that really has been unprecedented. And it's something that we should continue whether we are in session live or not. I'm going to be glad to get back to being in the State House and being in person. I've missed the facial expressions. I've missed the asides. I've missed the hallway conversations. I've missed the direct collegiality. But, you know, in all of this, we've done what few other states have done. We've kept our legislature operational for the past year in the height of the greatest pandemic in over a century. We've kept the doors open, not just for ourselves, but also for the public, even though those doors, in many ways, have simply been virtual. I'm looking forward to seeing you all back again in person. I've noticed the pictures of you on my screen over the past year, and I am kind of suspicious because many of you haven't aged a day. And I'm convinced that maybe I'm actually seeing avatars rather than real people on these screens, and I'll be glad to get back to be able to see you in person just to make sure. You know, we've spent a year, though, in this virtual lockdown, this virtual Golden Dome, as a result of the greatest pandemic, of course, in over a century. And we've lost a large number of our friends and neighbors, and we've lost more than 500,000 of our citizens throughout the United States. I'm happy to note that there is, in fact, a light at the end of the tunnel, and that we're getting ready to get out of all of this. And so to all of you who've helped us in this, in particular the Office of the Secretary of the Senate, the Legislative Council, Legislative IT, who've done a great job in helping us through this. I thank you. I thank you to the Sergeant at Arms and the Capitol Police and many, many others who played a part in enabling us to do this. And to Vermonters, thank you for tuning in to what really has become the COVID channel. We'll be back next season, and this time we'll be back live and in person and better than ever. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator. At this time, I'd like to ask the Majority Leader, Senator Clarkson, to offer some remarks.
Thank you, Madam President Pro Tem and Madam President. I am so proud of what we've accomplished this session. I'm proud that we've been so productive in this challenging COVID pandemic. And as our Minority Leader has so articulately said, the greatest pandemic of a century. That I'm so proud that we've pivoted to working remotely relatively seamlessly. We thank the wizards behind the curtain who enabled our remote work, our Senate Secretary and his amazing staff, Legislative Council, JFO, our IT staff, and our enabling State House staff, and to our new Lieutenant Governor, welcome. I'm proud that our Vermont values have driven our policy, that our work this year reflects our values of equity, social justice, the safety, well-being, and economic security for all Vermonters. We have taken care of each other during this pandemic in a time of lost jobs, lost business, and lost life. I'm proud that so many of our priorities have been realized and that we're acting on the lessons we've learned during the course of this pandemic. And that in this work, we are indeed building back better together. In broadband connectivity, investments in childcare, investments in housing, investments in our state college system, our university, and our independent colleges and law school, investments in our justice system, investments in helping our businesses and unemployed Vermonters survive the impacts of this COVID pandemic. I am proud of how we work together. It's easy to forget that the vast majority of our decisions are unanimous. When we disagree on an issue, we come together and continue to work productively forward on behalf of our constituents. I feel we are a model for how democracy at its best functions. And thank you to our leadership team, to our minority leader, who's so articulate, Senator Brock. It is a pleasure to serve with you, and I really honor our respectful relationship. To our assistant majority leader, Senator Hooker, who is one hell of a whip. And thank you to our pro tem. I'm so proud of her. How she's navigated our work with the other body, and even more challenging, her work with the other 29 members of her own body. She has managed it all with patience, wisdom, grace and humor, poetry and inspirational missives. Thank you, Senator Balint, for your vision and your leadership. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Clarkson. Thank you for all of your hard work, and to the minority leader as well. Thank you so much. It is so wonderful to be in the chamber and have some senators here with me today. It means that there are such bright days ahead. What I want to say to all of you to start is, well, we did it. We did it. Together, we did it. And like all of you, I'm tired, I'm weary, but I'm also filled with gratitude and satisfaction. And I just want to make sure we're not confusing satisfaction with complacency. Satisfaction because we've worked hard and we have done it on behalf of people in our communities that we care about. Yesterday, my day started with a very early call with the speaker and our chiefs of staff. The three of us hadn't had enough coffee, and one of us was juggling a cup of tea and feeding her toddler some cinnamon toast. It's fair to say that the toddler was the only one excited to be on Zoom at 7 in the morning. We shared our values and our goals and the struggles that our teams were having in trying to come to compromise over the budget. But we made a commitment to keep trying, to do the hard work both individually and collectively. Our next Zoom at about 7:30 was with the appropriation chairs. Again, we talked about values and goals. We sat with each other's frustrations and impatience and weariness. And then together, we tried to find a path forward. As everyone knows in this chamber, just because you have a map of a plan, it doesn't mean it's going to work, because there are so many moving parts and because we're human and we're all imperfect. Trying to do this job over Zoom, text, phone, and email is challenging at best, and it actually often veers into the absurd. It's incredibly time-consuming. And a problem that my seatmate from Wyndham said to me, I think this morning, a problem that usually takes about 15 minutes to solve might take hours or days in this format because of miscommunication. Did I mention we're all feeling weary from this? So back to the story. So we get off the Zoom with the appropriations chairs, and I head into the kitchen to try to whip together some breakfast to bring with me in the car to come to the State House. And I reach into the refrigerator and I grab a jar of maple syrup, and it slips out of my hands. And in a moment, there is maple syrup and shattered glass all over the tile floor of the kitchen. And the dog came running in to see what was up, and she wanted the syrup. So there I was, trying to clean up this mess before the dog got glass in her mouth. And I'm on my hands and knees amidst the dog hair and the dust and the syrup and the glass, and knowing I didn't have much time, in order to get in the car, to get to the State House, to meet with Bloomer, to figure out our day. And that's a lot of what we do as legislators. It's not glamorous. It's messy. We often have our hands in sticky goo. It's really not tidy at all. And my returning legislative colleagues, you've all known this, and yet you signed up for it again. You still continue to serve. And my new Senate colleagues, you're learning this now. You may have the title of senator, but you're a public servant, and you're often mired in the muck and goo of lawmaking. To Senators Terenzini, Ingalls, and Chittenden, thank you for jumping in to serve your community. To Senator Rahm, thank you for coming back to the legislature, even though you knew what the job entailed. Not many Americans ever run for office of any kind. The Pew Research Center has estimated that only about 2% of the American public will ever run for office. This includes local offices like school board and select board. And of that 2%, only about a quarter of the electeds are women. And we don't have statistics on non-binary individuals or trans men and trans women, but it's safe to say there aren't many. So to be an elected official is to be in some ways lonely. Thank you for serving. We all know how hard it is to be in the public eye. Once you stick your neck out to serve on a select board or a school board, you'll never have a peaceful trip to the grocery store again. You know that. We, your legislators, we see all of you in your communities serving in public service, and we want to thank you. Because as hard as it is to be in the legislature, I actually find it's much harder for our members back home who serve on their local boards and commissions. And I have to extend a big thank you to all who have helped us have this successful session. As I said, the majority leader and the whip, Senator Clarkson, Senator Hooker, all their hard work in wrangling the majority party. I want to thank Senator Brock, the minority leader, for his hard work and his collegiality. And I want to thank the chair of economic development for putting up with the scheduling changes of having 3 members of leadership on the morning committee. I know it wasn't easy. I also want to thank our chairs for helping the Senate to have a very successful session despite having to do our work remotely. The real power in the Senate rests in committee. The committees are the engine rooms and the idea incubators. And I'm grateful to all the committee chairs who work long hours without any additional compensation for their added workload. I'm grateful that you've kept us all afloat during this very challenging time. Others have spoken about the IT team, but I have to say it again. Kevin Moore and his crew have done a phenomenal job. Truly, if you look nationally, what we've been able to do here working remotely is incredible. So many thanks to the IT team, to lawyers, to those in drafting and editing, to our committee assistants, all of Ledge operations, to the joint fiscal staff that Senator Kitchell referenced shortly a little bit ago, to the Sergeant of Arms who's sitting with us here in the chamber and her staff, to the Capitol Police, of course, to the Senate Secretary's office, and to the LG for doing a fine job at the podium and keeping things running smoothly. I can tell you when Secretary Bloomer learned he was going to have a new pro tem and a new lieutenant governor all doing a remote session, he was nervous. And I have to say, I think we've made a good team, the 3 of us together. So this morning I was reflecting on where we were I guess not last March, but a year ago, March, as the previous speaker and the previous pro tem had to take control along with the Joint Rules Committee, all to successfully steer us through those first few weeks and months. Now, having done this job, I am certain we did not thank Mitzi Johnson and Tim Ash enough. They showed such steady leadership under incredible pressure those first few weeks and months of the pandemic, and they really set the tone for how we could do this work together, with both bodies working together not always in concert, sometimes, as we say with toddlers, parallel play, but working together to get the work done. As you all know, this has been a session for the history books, a global pandemic, an insurgency at the US Capitol, a new president being sworn in, a vaccine being rolled out. And as Senator Brock said, millions of people who have died or gotten sick from the virus. And today, like my colleagues, I know I'm thinking about all the families across Vermont who have lost a loved one, either from the virus or from some other terrible affliction, and they didn't have time to grieve. Dealing with grief and loss during this pandemic and this time of social distancing has been incredibly cruel. As we look ahead to brighter days that I know will await us soon, because I see the senators with me in the chamber, please, I ask all of you to be gentle with each other and your community members as we all learn how to be in community again. It has been such an honor to serve you this first year as your pro tem. We did so much work together, and it's meaningful work for Vermonters. Work that we prioritized as a Senate from the beginning. Ongoing relief for individuals and Vermonters, support to businesses, making real progress on broadband, childcare, housing, climate action, racial justice, continuing to reform our criminal justice system, supporting our schools, and bringing more voices into the conversations that happen in this building. We set important goals for ourselves, and we met so many of them. Of course, there's always more to do. And I know we have more than one perfectionist in the Senate. But I urge us all today to take at least a few minutes to think of the good work we've done. Tomorrow, you can start making the lists of the work you want to get done this summer and this fall and the next legislative session. Tomorrow, you can reach out to constituents and advocates and local officials to plan your next steps. Today, please give yourself permission to accept that you have done good work together. I also ask you to be patient and forgiving of yourself and your colleagues, and celebrate the work we've done. Back in January, on the first day of the session, I shared with you excerpts from a book by a man named Hans Rosling, and it was about possibilities and opportunities. And when you start something new, you are starting from a place of hope and possibility. And now, 5 months later, I am deep in a book called High Conflict: Why We Get Trapped and How We Get Out. It's by investigative journalist Amanda Ripley, and she studies conflicts. And I have used that book constantly over the last few weeks. She writes about high conflict and good conflict. And I feel like as a Senate, we are constantly trying to navigate between the two. In high conflict, the conflict becomes self-perpetuating and all-consuming. Most folks end up feeling worse off. It usually falls into an us and them theme. Communication is fraught and it breaks down, and we have the inability to see the other side. But we've also been in good conflict with one another, where the friction is serious and intense, but is not dehumanizing, and it leads somewhere useful. We will continue to tack between these two because we are human, and we are always trying to do better. The person who has always tried to help me do better in this work is my Chief of Staff, Carolyn Wesley. My right-hand woman. Simply put, I couldn't have done this session without you. You have been an incredible asset to me, but also to the entire Senate. I am so pleased you agreed to take this very difficult, very demanding job. And because you are a musical theater nerd like I am, I have to quote Stephen Sondheim from Into the Woods. The difference, Carolyn, between a cow and a bean is that a bean can begin an adventure. What an adventure we've had. I can't thank you enough for being strong and kind, funny, clever, and fierce. You, Carolyn Wesley, were made for this work. I also want to thank my friends and my mentors and my spouse, who always brings me back to my values, who remind me of why I show up to do this work. And I need to thank this man down here, John Bloomer. John, it has been an absolute pleasure working with you. We laugh a lot, we roll our eyes a lot, we swear a lot. I know you always have my back. It means the world to me. So I want to bring it back to the maple syrup that I started with. This work that we do is sometimes sweet, always sticky, sometimes really sharp objects that we didn't anticipate flying our way. I want to remind all of us about who helps us get through. Make sure this weekend you thank your spouses and your families. This life, the political life, is tough on families. Take a few minutes to thank them. And a bit of homework. A bit of homework. I'm going to ask you to write a note of thanks to a colleague or a staff member, someone that you had some kind of conflict with, minor or major, since January. Just jot them a note. It helps all of us move forward. And to Vermonters, we in the Senate, in partnership with the House and the Governor, did our work on behalf of all of you. We have shared some policy goals and we have diverged on others. On some matters, we agreed on the goal, but not at all on how to get there. But we demonstrated so clearly that we still have a healthy democracy here in the Green Mountain State. And soon, we will all be back in the People's House together. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Believe we have a bit more work to do, but before we do, I would also like to just give some very, very brief remarks. Members of the Senate, Vermonters, Secretary Bloomer, Vanessa, it's been an absolute incredible first 5 months in a very new position. And I just wanted to reflect very briefly on where we all started, where I started, a day after a deadly attack on the US Capitol in the middle of a global pandemic. And I think it's safe to say that there were a lot of doubts and unknowns about what would happen and how it would happen. And I think that's an understatement. I think a lot of people were curious, but nothing about the session, as we know, has been normal or easy. There's nothing about Zoom and this box in front of me that is normal, although it's wonderful to have senators in the chamber today. And a lot of Vermonters have struggled over the last year, but especially over the last 5 months, but senators have as well. And I want to recognize that there has been personal loss, that there's been hard times with families and with communities and with loved ones. But despite these challenges, personal loss and struggle, this body has demonstrated the resilience, the deep endurance, adaptability, and strength of our Vermont democracy. Not only did the Senate pass legislation that would provide urgent COVID relief to Vermont communities and families and businesses and workers, but also long-term critical investments deeply necessary for the future of our state. And I just want to applaud the work on broadband and childcare, in particular, two priorities that I also share. This Senate has also showed Vermonters that we have your back. We have your back when it comes to equal protection, when it comes to human rights, when it comes to reproductive liberty, and when it comes to saying that racism and hate have absolutely no place in our state. What you've also accomplished is just an incredible and remarkable amount of work. You don't need me to say that, but I just want to take a moment to acknowledge it. And it's not that you've accomplished that work, but the way that you've done it that I think is most remarkable. It's about the path that you've taken and the steps that you've taken to ensure participation, access, consultation, transparency, accountability, all the things that Vermonters expect every day, but it's hard to achieve during a global pandemic. Well, I, for one, deeply look forward to saying, or rather not saying, senators kindly unmute or unmute. I look forward to removing that from my vocabulary, but I do think that it's important, even when this chamber is full again, and the State House as well, and I simply can't wait for that to happen, that we can recognize the opportunities and positive change that have come from this crisis, and specifically that we continue to use all the technology that we have, for better or for worse, to keep participation possible for all Vermonters. In closing, I'd also like to say just a few words of thanks, specific thanks. Thank you to all of you on the screen, and I'm looking at you. Thank you to all the senators here in the chamber. It's been an honor to serve as your Madam President. I'd also like to thank the senator from Windham, the great President Pro Tem, Madam President Pro Tem, Becca Balint. It's been an honor to work with you and to learn from you this session. Also, thanks to my Chief of Staff, who's up in the gallery. Hazel and I learned a lot about the rules very quickly. And I just want to thank Hazel for her tremendous work during a virtual session without a playbook. And finally, to acknowledge the Sergeant at Arms who's here, who's been in the building, the Capitol Police as well, who have been here, all of the lawyers and clerks and everyone who've been running around the building trying to get so much done during this time. The Senate staff, Steve, Helen, and Penny, but in particular, Vanessa Davidson, who is here with the Operations Center before her, which includes, as you know, the live feed, the Zoom meetings, and everything that entails in addition to the Journal. And I can't mention, excuse me, this mask. I cannot mention Vanessa without mentioning John, who has been nothing but an incredible advisor and mentor and guided me through a very, very first and certainly not last session in this chamber. John and Vanessa, you are incredible public servants, and thank you for all you do for Vermont. And with that, senators, I just want to congratulate you. I look forward to seeing you in your communities in person without masks this summer, and just a tremendous congratulations on this session. And with that, I believe
We're going to have to take a, that's what we take for the governor. He's here.
Okay.
We're ready to go forward.
Great. I believe the governor has arrived virtually. I believe I need a motion from the senator from Windham is recognized.
Thank you, Madam President, and I understand this is a little bit odd because you're on Zoom, but we're still going to do the pomp and circumstance the best that we can. I move that the President appoint a committee of 3 members to inform the governor that the Senate has completed the business of the session and is ready to adjourn pursuant to the provisions of JRS 29.
The senator of Windham has moved that the president appoint a committee of 3 members to inform the governor that the Senate has completed the business of the session and is ready to adjourn pursuant to provisions of JRS 29. Are you ready for the question? Kindly unmute. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the president is instructed to appoint a committee of 3 members to inform the governor that the Senate has completed the business of the session and is ready to adjourn pursuant to JRS 29.
Committee?
Yes, and the committee is now appointed. Senator Clarkson, Senator Brock, and Senator Polina. It is now my pleasure to virtually welcome to the Vermont Senate, the Honorable Philip B. Scott, the Governor of the State of Vermont.
Good afternoon, Madam Speaker, Madam President, Senator Balint, Senator Clarkson, Senator Brock, and members of the Senate. Many of you I served side by side with not too many years ago. Let me start by saying I appreciate marking the close of your session in May, because I'm sure, as you remember, last year I was giving this address at the end of September. But I know this year, like the last, has been anything but normal. Still, the fact that you're ending today is a very good sign that things are moving in the right direction. When I spoke to you in January, I reflected on what we've been through over the last year and the toll the pandemic had taken. At that moment in time, we were approaching what we now know was the peak of the pandemic. And I think it's important to recognize what an incredible moment in history we've all been through. I appreciate the efforts of each of you and every single Vermonter who helped us lead the nation in our response. From beginning to end, this has been a team effort. Today, we're in a position to exit the pandemic with fewer lives lost than any other state in the continental U.S., one of the lowest unemployment rates, a budget surplus, and a truly transformative economic opportunity. And today, we look forward to a future that's much brighter than we would have thought possible just 6, 12, or maybe even 2 years ago, pre-pandemic. Our work together extended into the weeks and months you were out of session, and will obviously continue as we move to the recovery phase. But I'm confident what we've achieved together will have a positive, lasting, and transformational benefit, but especially for the communities and counties that for several decades have needed it most. This includes historic investments in broadband, housing, and downtown development to level the economic playing field from county to county. Landmark investments in climate action, funding to assist our small employers with recovery, and more. And I can't mention these investments without also recognizing our congressional delegation, Senator Leahy, Senator Sanders, and Congressman Welch, for helping make sure we receive the full benefit from the federal aid packages. Now, I know we haven't agreed on everything, and I'm going to pressure you to invest in these key areas, but the intent language included in the budget will help us stay on this transformative path and get the best return on investment from this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. With your help, commitment, and shared vision, we can complete the economic revitalization of every county in the years to come with the investments we've made today. Beyond the budget, with your leadership, alongside our Director of Racial Equity, the Racial Equity Task Force, and a number of advocacy groups across the state, we've taken important steps to increase equity in healthcare, schools, and more with H210, H428, S16, and others, as well as initiatives to protect the vulnerable, including S99 to repeal the statute of limitations on child abuse and the Panic Defense Bill, H128. We also work together on important bills like S88, an insurance bill that will help lower healthcare costs for Vermonters, and H171, the child care bill that will further strengthen our system and help families and kids across the state. In January, I asked that we work together, not just to get through the pandemic, but to face our long-standing challenges head-on. Challenges like regional economic inequity, workforce shortages, and the crisis of affordability for far too many families and businesses. I said, if we work together and put politics and partisan agendas aside, we can pass a budget that could truly transform the future and set us on a path that supports all Vermonters in every corner of our state. My friends, we've done that. Vermonters are already better for it. And we've once again shown America what can be achieved when elected leaders have the courage to put progress ahead of politics. I want to thank the Speaker and the Pro Tem for their leadership, their candor during our frequent meetings, and for always keeping their word. I also want to thank the minority and majority leaders, the chairs, Senator Kitchell and Rep. Hooper in particular, and each and every one of you for working in good faith to seek consensus whenever possible. As I said in my inaugural address, this year was an opportunity for us to rise above politics and gamemanship, to rise above the difficulty of a global pandemic that has taken thousands of lives and disrupted so much, to rise to the challenge and embrace the opportunities so we can solve problems, help people, and emerge stronger and more resilient than ever. I'm very pleased to say, from my perspective, we've done it. And while there's always more work to do, I greatly appreciate and I'm grateful for most of the choices you've made, but all of your efforts. Finally, I look forward to seeing you again in person, shaking your hands and catching up. So again, thank you all and congratulations on the job well done. Have a wonderful summer.
Thank you, Governor. I believe we need a motion. The senator from Wyndham is recognized.
Thank you, Madam President. I move that the Senate do now adjourn pursuant to the provisions of JRS 29.
The senator from Wyndham has moved that the Senate do now adjourn pursuant to the provisions of JRS 29. Are you ready for the question? Kindly unmute. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. The ayes have it, and the Senate stands in adjournment.